Effective business communication. This is really important. In fact, it's probably the most important aspect that you are facing as you enter your business career in a particular field. It'll affect you as an intern, it will affect you in your job, it will affect you as you move up and are considered for promotions and become part of management and maybe even own your own company, as you make deals with other companies, as you create contracts. All of this is dependent upon effective business communication. I want you to look ahead and think about your test prep. Think about the LinkedIn profile that's become an indispensable part of effective business communication and networking, and know that you need to take a look at this and get started. And definitely look at our textbook, Business Communication for Success, which all of this is based on. It's an open text. It does not cost anything. Make sure you read the chapters, take notes, and take notes on the lectures. There are things in the book that are not in the lectures, things in the lectures that are not in the book. So you've downloaded, hopefully, your lecture notes. Here are some questions that you'll see. What are the 8 essential components of communication? What do they look like in real life? What is the difference between the transactional model and the constructivist model? What are the different types of interference or noise one can experience? And identify examples of the 5 types of context. Obviously, you can take other notes, and they are important, but these notes will really make sure that you target critical aspects of the chapters that will be highlighted on the tests and you will be assessed for. So, why communicate well? Let's review the importance of communication. What is it? First, it's always the question we begin with. Well, there's no exact definition. The book definition is the process of understanding and sharing meaning, but another definition is the process of deriving meaning from symbolic messages. We are moving into an era where symbolism matters more than ever, right? In our technological era, graphics can become part of our communication and can even give us subtle messages and and change how we interpret words or situations. So know that communication itself is often hard to define, but it always has something to do with meaning. For example, if you say, "I love you too," know that that meaning can change in terms of the social expectations at play. Why would you say this? In what situation would you say this? Do you really mean it? The context, does that matter when you say it? Our interactions themselves, is there a pattern? Two obviously implies it comes after something else. And there are a lot of different situations in which people establish patterns and we respond to those patterns. Think about the dynamism of our interactions. Communication is so dynamic. It is based on changing situations and circumstances, and what is meant in one moment may not be what is meant in another. Meaning itself is not message. Our message form both enables and constrains what we can communicate, and it is predicated on choice, decision, and action. So let's look at the concepts of this chapter. Your own self-concept, communication as a problem-solving activity, and as a career-building activity. So what is the definition of communication? Well, the etymology of it is communicare, a Latin word, which means to share or make common. So there's an assumption that communication is always about sharing, about community. So the definition we will use most frequently is the process of understanding and sharing meaning, the definition from your book. Know that in business, this process takes place internally and externally. So we can have communication within a business between the CEO and the VP and an administrator for the network. Or it could take place externally between one of the account agents and the representative at another company that's doing business with this company. The aspects that we're going to assume apply to all levels of communication is a process, that it is a dynamic activity based on feedback. Understanding that there can be errors in communication, and understanding is critical, and it's a place where we often have problems. Sharing that you don't communicate alone, and meaning that is what you share through communication. Now, sometimes there's a problem understanding what is meant and what is significant, but that is the goal. So I want you to know the 8 components: source, message, channel, receiver, feedback, environment, context, and interference or noise. 2 words for the same thing. The definition of context is that setting, scene, and expectations of the individuals involved. So that's from your book, page 10. So think about the context of a text message. Who is sending and who is receiving the message? What came before and after that? What expectations are bound up in that text message? Even the channels, text, phone call, and email, have different aspects of expectation attributed to them. So you may have different response times for those. And based on more detail about the context, that response time may be even more different. If it's a quick response for something that needs to happen tomorrow, the expectation is going to be different. So what challenges do we face? Well, we're in an interesting time. We face changes in technology, very rapid changes, a flattening of business hierarchies where a lot of the middle management is gone, a global business environment, remote workplaces, generational differences, cultural differences, and language differences. And there are more challenges: cancel culture, new expectations defining ethical behavior, a lack of distinction between private and public communication, social media comments, how people view different aspects, different community bubbles where some information seems more important than others. So, and that can include the tech community, which may not have a different language, but is certainly its own community. So there's a lot of challenges that you're going to face, and those challenges are not going to get any easier. Think about the models of communication. So in research, we develop models for how things work and to explain why they work the way they do. 2 models are Constructivist and Transactional. So your book is Constructivist and Transactional. Well, our class is primarily transactional. In Constructivism, we are actively working on a theory. So we're doing research and evaluating research and thinking about why some people are better communicators than others. So we're really looking at shared meaning. Our core assumption in Constructivism is that we make sense of the world through negotiated meaning. And our focus is going to be shared meaning, cognitive templates, trying to define success. And that's a process that you are a part of as you read the book, as you think about it, as you take notes and listen to the lectures. Know that community, and remember that your community culture at your company, which you're going to influence greatly, is often about building shared meaning. So think about that carefully as you go into the workplace and you become critical parts of creating a company culture and contributing to it. The transactional model of communication is an interpersonal communication model. So it looks at what happens between individuals, and it looks at that interaction between the sender and the receiver. So we are really focused on what we do in the class as people. The sender and receiver interact. We're often sending feedback and multiple messages. So you're asking questions, I'm answering them. You may build on our meaning and actually add to it or have me change some things. So we're really looking at, in terms of focus, how we play both roles. Sometimes we're not doing a linear turn taking. I talk and then you answer. We're functioning at the same time. You're thinking and constructing while I'm saying something. And that process looks at the environment itself, including complications and barriers. Just think about what happens when you're listening to a video that's on YouTube and how different that is from the classroom environment. So, what barriers you might encounter in that situation. So let's go back to constructivism and think about, as a constructivist, defining terms. So what is common ground? Well, first you might ask, look at something real in the world and say, what are these? So if you're holding up these cans, people will have different answers. And depending on where they are in the country, even if everyone speaks the same language, they will say different things, right? What do you think when you see these cans? Are they soda? Are they pop? Are they Cokes? Are they all Cokes? So what do you think when you see these? There are different names. Think about how interpersonally people define interactions differently and add drama and add emotion, and that influences how we define terms. So you have a friend who gets upset easily, you're going to bail on the friend this weekend for an event. At least you think that's how the friend's going to see it. You know you need to go to the event to further your opportunities for college. Maybe for a scholarship. Maybe it's a career event. Your friend just sees it as you bailing on them. You don't see it the same way. So how do you tell them? Well, your communication with that friend might involve a lot of things and a lot of different aspects based on your previous communication and the context of the situation and how the friend has reacted in the past. So what you say will be very different than a friend who wouldn't be upset. Maybe you would just say, hey, I got to go to this thing this weekend, to one friend. I can't do it. To this friend, you say, man, I don't want to go, but I really have to. I'll never hear the end of it. I would love to be with you, but no, I can't do it. So you change how you interact with other people based on that context. So let's think about models of communication. Here are some previous models, the linear model, where, source goes to receiver, back to source to receiver. There is, only one thing happening at a time here. The interactional model, things are happening, back and forth. The transactional model, where at the same time that I use my voice to give you a message, then you as the receivers are giving me feedback. And then Guffey's communication process has this idea of encoding. You encode your idea in words. So what are our words? They're a code. They're not the message. All right? And how do we transmit that code? Well, we pick a channel. It could be an email or a text or verbal, but the other person has to decode it. Now, you might not decode it accurately, and that might affect how you respond. So what is encoding? It's when you put your words in language. And what is decoding? When you interpret them. So if you are talking to someone with a strong accent, maybe you will misunderstanding. I have a friend who has a strong East Texas accent. She kept talking about her new car. And she said, my new car has 4 screens. And I thought, she has 4 screens? Wow, that's amazing. And I said, 4 screens? That's awesome. I didn't know what it meant, but I thought it was awesome. And finally we kept talking and she said, no, forest grain. And I was like, oh, it's a color. So even when we speak the same language, we can misunderstand each other. I really thought she had like 4 screens on this awesome car. Now, look at this picture and think about everything that might be going on here. You can't hear, but you can see there's a source, there are receivers, and you have all this interaction going on. You have a channel, you probably have interference. You can even see what might be some of that interference. You have context. You have the overall environment. So here's a way to view this and really understand a little bit more about how to identify the different parts of those 8 aspects of communication. Be able to identify the different types of noise or interference. Same word, means the same thing. And give examples. So what's physiological noise? Well, it's got to be different from psychological, right? Physio, meaning the body. So bodily noise might be hunger or illness, while psychological noise might be you worrying about a test next period. Okay, so what's external noise? Both of those are internal noise. Now we get to external noise. Let's think about environmental noise. So if I'm in the classroom and there's somebody mowing the grass outside, that makes it really hard for me to focus, right? Or if I'm in a coffee shop and there are people talking around me. It might even be the way people look that's distracting me. You know, if I'm looking around and everyone is wearing outfits that I hadn't considered, I might not be able to focus very well. Linguistic noise might be me not understanding someone's accent and why I think for screen means for screens. So I would like you to take a moment and on a piece of paper or even in your mind, list 3 environmental cues and indicate how they influence your expectations for communication. To make this even better, think about walking into a job interview and what environmental cues would cue you in to how this communication is going to go. Do you have it written? Okay, so think about those contexts. What did you see and hear as you were thinking about cues? So you walk into the job interview, and let's say it's for an internship, and you hear, well, let's say that everyone is wearing an outfit that is much nicer than yours, and you're the job candidate. So this is a communication cue that tells you this is going to be a more formal job interview than you expected. Let's say you walk in and there's a chair already pulled back and the other people are standing, but it seems very clear where you're going to sit and how this communication is going to proceed. You're all going to be seated. Wonderful. Let's take the same situation with a chair and think about a Google challenge that is no longer done, but was done for a while, where they actually did a panel interview and they would set the person up with a chair that was so low to the floor that when the person tried to sit down, they were very obviously uncomfortable in front of a panel or a number of people. So let's think 6 or 7 people. So you're sitting in this chair very close to the floor in front of 6 or 7 people. Do you adjust the chair? And that's what they were looking for in that interview. And also how you responded to the interview questions, but they wanted to see how you would do. Well, think about your context in an internship. You will have supervisors. You are probably thinking, okay, I might be hired full-time for this. So that's going to influence your communication. You want to be very professional because you know that an internship is a long job interview often. They really want to hire someone full-time. That's why they're paying you and putting so much into that internship. And then what else? You are networking, right? So that's another context that you might want to look at as far as the situation itself and how you interact with people and how that affects how you interact. So there are both environmental cues and cues that are, based on the situation itself. Now, those can change from regular internship to an international internship. Suddenly, we have a little more noise in the situation. Language and culture can be linguistic noise that may affect how you interact with people, how you network, how you consider a future in this company, how you interact with the culture itself and communicate. So let's put communication in context. You should be able to identify the different contexts. Interpersonal would be talking to yourself or writing to yourself. So when you write notes, when you jot something down, when you literally talk to yourself, okay, you can do it. Or, oh, you're so stupid. That's intrapersonal communication. Interpersonal communication is talking to one other person. So you might be talking to a friend. Group communication, that's when you're talking to a small group of 5 to 8 people. 3 or 4 people is fine too. So let's say you have a group that is doing a presentation. That is group communication. Public communication is talking to a large group of people. So they're gathered together. Now that could be 300 people in Davidson Auditorium gathered together to listen to Dean Percool speak. It is still public communication. It's not mass communication. Mass communication blankets the society. It's sending a tweet. It's going on television. So these are different context types, and you should be able to give examples of these and think easily of them and categorize your interactions in that way. So, responsible communication. What are the two main responsibilities of a business communicator? You should be prepared. And what does that mean? Organized, clear, concise, and punctual. And you should be ethical, egalitarian, respectful, trustworthy, practicing the golden rule. And what does that mean? Well, egalitarian means believing that all people are equal and deserve equal rights and opportunities. I often categorize that with respect, and I put that also with the golden rule. And remember, if you don't know a word, I want you to Google it. So that's what I've done here. I'm demonstrating what I expect you to do throughout the semester. If you don't know something, you should look it up and make notes in intrapersonal communication to yourself. What's the golden rule? It's to treat others as you would expect it, as you would hope to be treated. Now, that does not mean treat others as you are treated or as you would prefer to be treated, literally. So if you don't want anyone to talk to you or throw you a birthday party on your birthday, that doesn't mean you ignore other people's birthdays and never talk to them. It means that you learn about them and you value what they value in how you treat them. So if they really care about their birthday, then you make an effort. If they would like to be spoken to respectfully, then you would speak to them respectfully. Respect is embedded in how the good communicator communicates. So does the communicator have a responsibility to the audience? Yes, the communicator should be respectful of the audience and bring that preparedness and that respect to them. Now, does the audience have a responsibility to the speaker? Yes, you do. Think about what that responsibility is. Be prepared to discuss that in class. Now, know that our communication, once again, is not just verbal. In 2018, the Dallas Morning News reported that 20% of adults in North Texas can't read this sentence. So to do good business, you have to respect people and make it easy for them to do business with you. You have to give them the tools that they need. So you give them the tools. You make your communication easy to understand at a glance. And that is a huge part of this class. That whether it's in writing, or whether it's graphics, or whether it's a combination of the two, incorporating design and using white space or negative space, you make it easy for other people to understand what they can do to get what they want and to create a great win-win situation for both of you. As you can see, a lot of our local and international companies that sell food have taken this to heart. Everybody makes it easy to order, and for their employees to enter their information as they're ordering. So you can't assume that everything's going to stay the same, everyone reads everything the way you do, and that business gets done that way. Graphics play a huge role, and they're going to play an even more important role in the future. So in review, here are the next lecture notes you saw at the beginning. I hope that you've written down a lot of this, typed it out, and thought about it carefully. Then look at the book and add to it. Thank you. Please contact me with any questions. I'm so glad that you've joined us this semester. We're going to have a great semester. Bye.